Episode 137 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Or at least I think it's 137. You see, there's another one I'm trying to upload at this very moment, but I'm struggling. The internet connection here in rural Serbia is not what it might be, and I'm having major problems uploading it. So I don't know if this is going to be 136 or 137. But anyway, what I do need to do, though, is because, as I say, the internet connection is a bit shit, is I need to keep my my videos short. Really going to try and keep it to about 20-25 minutes today's episode. And I'm going to be repeating the same format that was such a box office sensation last week with the. Do you remember the lucky draw that I did? What was it? What I called lucky dip? Okay, so these are the Interpretation Station files I've brought with me from home. Okay, and they all are in a number of different languages: French, English, Arabic, Spanish, Russian, English. Did I say English? So I'm just going to pick one out completely and at random, do a quick site translation of it, and then go through it again, having studied in a bit more depth and looking in a bit more depth at what other linguistic solutions that I could have used. If I draw an English text from the pile, I'm going to try and do it into French. Okay, that is the challenge for me, and we'll see if maybe I can teach you French guys something who are interpreting into French. You never know. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. Big thick wad here. So, okay, we're going to go with this one. Oh my God, it's Arabic. Oh my God, this is going to be tough. Okay, here we go then. Arabic episode. We'll just do the first couple of pages of this. Okay, so this is by the National Center for Combating for Mine Action on Strength and Cooperation and Assistance. Actually, chairman, heads of delegations and representatives of member states and observers and international organizations, ladies and gentlemen, peace be upon you, and okay, so take two. I must confess, the first statement I pulled out was it was Sudan on mine action, on anti-personnel mines, and it was a bit tough, to be honest. So I decided to abort that statement. So I'm going to try a second one. I'm going to try to pull something else out the hat, out the file. Hopefully, be a bit more successful this time. There we go. That's quite a long one. Okay. This is actually France. Okay. Elimination of female genital mutilation, FGM. All right. So this is my site translation of this on the fly. Okay. This was at the Human Rights Council, pretty recent, actually, 7th of July, 2022. Okay. President, the practice of sexual and genital mutilations are a serious violation of the physical integrity of women and girls. It is a violation of their most fundamental rights, starting with their right to dignity and their right to do what they like with their own body. This unacceptable practice reflects a persisting inequality between women and men and perpetuates the vicious circle of sexual and gender-based violence. It is an intolerable scourge, which is an insult to the human conscience. Implementing a feminist diplomacy, France has made the rights of women and girls and gender equality a priority of its exterior action. It provides bilateral and multilateral support, substantial support when it comes to sexual reproductive health, maternal and infant health in numerous countries, particularly those affected by the scourge. Our support manifests itself through our aid to development and our financial support to the French Muskoka Fund, to the UN Fund for Population, UNFPA. France will intensify the impetus created at the Generation Equality Forum under the aegis of UN Women, which it co-chairs with Mexico. The Council has a responsibility to send a firm message regarding the gravity and unacceptable nature of this kind of sexual violence. France is grateful to the Burkinabe penholder and to the African group for introducing this important initiative. We do regret, however, the African group returned to the consensual language of the previous resolution 4416. We regret in particular the absence of a reference to the outcome documents of the follow-up conferences of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and of the Programme of Action and International Conference on Population and Development, ICPD. The outcome document of the final conference of the ICPD follow-up in Nairobi laid a certain number of fundamental principles on the rights and sexual and reproductive health, on infant mortality, and on combating sexual and gender-based violence. This fundamental repository on gender equality preceded Resolution 4416. The language on the follow-up documents, which was consensual and well integrated into the last resolution, has therefore been dropped without good reason by the sponsors. Nothing, we think, can justify such a regression when it comes to the rights of women. We also regret the absence of a reference to a gender-responsive approach. As called on by the resolution, FGM must stop. This is only possible by actively seeking out solutions to structural inequalities which rage between men and women in communities where this practice still exists. The language, the gender-responsive language, which was consensual and integrated in the last resolution, has also been dropped without any good reason by the sponsors. Despite these setbacks, and because the subject of sexual and genital mutilation is particularly important, France has chosen, though, not to break the consensus on this initiative. I thank you. Okay, there you go. That was France talking on about FGM. That was my attempt on the fly at that. And what we'll now do is we'll go through it. I'm going to just study this in a bit more depth for 10 minutes, see if I can come up with any new interesting solutions for you. And then I will see you on the other side when we do our deep dive, or they like saying it, when we do our deep dive into the text. Okay, see you on the other side, on the flip side. Okay, so let's take you through what we did. Let's review some of the solutions I gave you, and let's see what things we could have done better. One thing I'll say I need to do better, just generally one thing I know I do, by the way, I do okay, I do when I'm hesitating slightly. It makes a big difference if you stop and I see that when I listen to other people, and people when they interpret who don't it just comes across better. That's one thing I need to work on. I need to try and make a real deliberate effort to stop Anyway, let's see about the what language solutions I offered and what better ones maybe I could have come up with. Okay, so President, Human Rights Council, always got a president, okay. The practice of sexual and genital mutilation are so I said for atteinte, I said a violation And then I saw très grave. I said it was a violation, a very grave violation, or maybe serious violation of the physical integrity of women and girls. It is a violation of their leurs droits les plus élémentaires, their most fundamental rights, the most elementary rights. Somehow I think that fundamental rights is sounds better in English. Starting with their right to dignity. Now, this is the one I struggled with. Leur droit à disposer librement de leur corps. I was trying to find a way that wouldn't sound, a way of expressing that wouldn't sound sort of too facetious. I was trying to make it sound smooth, you know. I think I said the right to do what they please with their body. I was trying to avoid there being too many sexual connotations. It's quite difficult. Anyway, I sort of looked it up. I looked up on Lingui to see if there was a better neutral bureaucratic way of reflecting that concept. And I think the best alternative I found, I looked up here, you see, I put in disposer librement de leur corps, and on europal.europa.eu, women's fundamental right to be in charge of their own bodies. That's here if you can see it. That to me seemed pretty good. That seemed to me a pretty good sort of very bland, neutral way of expressing that that concept. So I think we'll go with that. The right to be in charge of their own bodies. I think it's a good one, maybe just to sort of repeat to yourself a couple of times, because you may well run into it. This unacceptable practice reflects the persistent inequality between women and men, and perpetuates the vicious circle of sexual and violence sexiste. So we've had this quite. This is actually SGBV, sexual and gender-based violence. I could just have really said there SGBV. I think I said sexual and gender-based violence. Maybe. Okay. Porteuse d'une diplomatie féministe. Now, I tried for a second or two to come up with something. You know, to me, when they say porteuse, it sounds a bit grand. It sounds like they're really sort of showing off a bit. In the end, I just said implementing a feminist diplomacy. I mean, I know that France and Canada, Spain, they talk about this a lot, how they have what they call a feminist foreign policy. So in case it's the first time you've come across it, it won't be the last. Okay. So anyway, I tried to think of something a bit more grand. I was thinking that maybe for porteuse, you could maybe see boasting a feminist diplomacy. I mean, okay, for you non-English speakers, non-natives, okay, boast is usually got a slightly pejorative meaning, you know, se vanter, you know. But in certain contexts in English, it can be used in a positive sense. You know, you see that the country boasts some of the most beautiful landmarks anywhere in the world. Okay, so perhaps you could say here boasting, because they're proud. The French are proud that they have this feminist foreign policy. So maybe you could say boasting a feminist diplomacy, or you just play it safe, like I did, to say implementing, right? France has made the rights of women and girls and gender equality a priority of it. I think I said exterior action, maybe external action. I know the EU has an external action service, or maybe you could have just said for action extérieure, maybe of its foreign policy, even. It provides bilateral and multilateral support. Substantial support. I think I didn't see the substantial. I just went with the bilateral, multilateral. Again, technique there for you repeat the word to get that final adjective in that you missed out. You know, you can just repeat it as if giving the idea, the support, more emphasis. So I said it provides bilateral and multilateral support, substantial support, when it comes to sexual and reproductive rights and health. So I think that has an acronym, sexual reproductive, SRHR. Yeah, sexual and reproductive health and rights is the full expression. So I think under these circumstances, I think the whole meeting was maybe about similar issues, and these ideas had probably already been mentioned before by other delegations. So I think there'd be a case certainly for just going straight in with an acronym like that. Of maternal and infant health in numerous countries, particularly those affected by this scourge, fléau. If you want an alternative to scourge, by this blight, by this plague. Nah, blight is maybe better. Our support. Now here I said bassin particulier. Maybe I could have said. I think I said is manifested in our manifests itself through our aid to development. Perhaps assistance, the ODA, official development assistance. So maybe rather than aid, maybe assistance would be the better word here. And our financial support to the French Muskoka Fund and to UNFPA. Certainly this, I'd never heard of the Muskoka Fund before, but this is quite an important UN fund, okay? UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund. I just looked up actually. I was just wondering what the A, so you had the UNFPA, you see, and it's still known as UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, or UNFPA. So what does the A stand for? Well, apparently it was originally known as UN Fund for Population Activities. Okay, so they dropped the activities. It's now just UN Population Fund, but the acronym has stuck, UNFPA. And just FYI, so in case you run into it again, this Muskoka Fund, I'm just looking it up. Le Fonds Français Muskoka. Since 2010, the French Muskoka Fund has been improving the health and well-being of women, newborns, children, and adolescents in West and Central Africa. So there you go. Okay. France intensifiera. So France will be intensifying, will be stepping up. La dynamique lancée. Now I said here the impetus launched. I think here maybe you could say will just be, in English, we would probably say for this whole section here, intensifiera également la dynamique lancée. We would probably say France will be building on the momentum generated or the momentum created. That's how the words that we use to really express that concept. Now, obviously, you don't know, if you haven't got the text in front of you, you don't know exactly which direction it's going to go. So, you can say, so we'll step up the la dynamique, as I say, momentum, impetus. I think I said launched, but yeah. So with a momentum or with impetus, it's good to remember as collocations, generate or create. By the Generation Equality Forum under the aegis of UN Women, which it co-chairs with Mexico. And again, for a bit more for your information, so this Generation Equality Forum. So apparently this took place in Mexico. I say apparently. Maybe I should know this. I have heard of it before, but as with a lot of these things, when you're working, you hear it and you just say it. Okay, you just render it in the moment. You don't give it too much thought. But okay, I have run into it a few times. So I thought it's always worth sometimes looking up what these forum and what some of these mechanisms actually do. So the Generation Equality Forum took place in Mexico City in March and in Paris from 30th of June to 2nd July 2021. The forum launched a 5-year action journey to achieve irreversible progress towards gender equality, founded on a series of concrete, ambitious, and transformative actions, including $40 billion in financial commitments. Okay, so 5 years. I think you're going to be hearing more about Generation Equality Forum. So take note. Okay, now here I deliberately dropped Monsieur le Président. Okay, tip I always say, if you're in trouble. If you're falling behind, just skip those little interjections when they say Monsieur Président. That's what I did. The council has a responsibility to send a firm message at the gravity. If you feel uncomfortable with gravity, and I don't feel too uncomfortable with it, but a good alternative is the severity and the unacceptable nature of sexual violence. France is grateful to, now this is interesting, La Plume Burkinabèse. So La Plume. So this is an expression that I first started hearing when I was still back in New York, maybe about 2015, in the Security Council. And so what they started in the Security Council doing is they started for each issue, for each dossier, okay, the members would appoint what was called a pen holder, okay? That's La Plume, the pen holder. He's the guy basically in charge of a specific dossier. And I can't remember what the word was in other languages. It's like the focal point, a sort of fancy way of saying the focal point. And what do you call someone from Burkina Faso? This is interesting because I was watching last night. Me and my son were watching the athletics last night, the World Athletics Championships. I can't remember what race it was. The 5,000 meters men, and there was a guy from Burkina Faso, and so I was showing off a bit, and I said, I asked my son, so do you know what you call someone from Burkina Faso? And he said something like a Burkino Fasian, to which I went, so Burkinabe. So I mean that's what it is in French, right? So I think you'd call it a burka. Even in English, I think you'd say that it would thank the Burkinabe pen holder and the African group for presenting. You can just say presenting. I often like to introduce initiatives, submit initiatives, tabling. You got a lot of different alternatives there, actually, haven't you? Just to again jazz up your language. Just think about, expand your knowledge of synonyms. Even for the simple word, it's good to build up your arsenal of synonyms. We regret, however, that the African group returned to the consensual language of the previous resolution, 4416. So, in fact, this statement, this was all part of this part of the meeting. This was towards the end of the Human Rights Council session, and it was all about resolutions. They were discussing the various resolutions that had been submitted, that had been tweaked, adjusted by the various groups, and there was lots of explanations of votes, explanation of vote before the vote, explanation of vote after the vote. Oh yeah, it gets very technical at this when they get down to that part of the meeting on the resolutions. We regret in particular the absence of a reference to documents finaux. I mean, usually this is outcome documents. That's what it's at the UN anyway. Rather than final documents, you'd be okay saying final documents, but outcome documents sounds a bit more professional, shall we say. Knowledgeable of follow-up conferences to the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and of the program of action of this International Conference on Population and Development, the ICPD. That's one you hear quite a bit about. So I think I said the full name and then gave the acronym. The outcome document of the final follow-up conference of the ICPD in Nairobi pose un certain nombre de principes fondamentaux. So I said lays a certain number of fundamental principles. Perhaps I could have said lays down, propose, establishes, on the right to, okay, here we go again, santé sexuelle et reproductive, droit à la santé sexuelle et reproductive, SRHR, infant mortality, and la lutte contre combating SGBV. You got a lot of acronyms actually that you can be drawing on in this text. Where are we here? Okay, so corpus fondamental. Now I said this fundamental repository because this corpus, it's talking about all the texts, all the documents that have been adopted. Perhaps you could say this fundamental body of work. I don't think we'd say a corpus in English. Yeah, I would say I think repository is good. Yeah, maybe body of work on gender equality precedes Resolution 4416. The language on the follow-up documents, and I said, which was consensual and well integrated into the last resolution, a donc été écarté sans raison. So I think here I said was dropped without good reason. So I think that's what we would say in English. Without justification, was therefore deleted for écarté, dropped, left out. Par les auteurs. So usually for the auteur d'une résolution, usually it's the sponsors. Okay, I think that's. I mean, are they referring? You obviously have the people who actually write the resolution and those who support the resolution, who are all together known as the sponsors. I guess there is the sort of core maybe group of maybe one or two delegations that actually authored the resolution, who maybe you would call the authors. But my inclination is, if you're not certain exactly, just say the sponsors for this auteur de la résolution. I'd say that works. Yeah, you can't really go wrong. Just say the sponsors. That was dropped without good reason by the sponsors. Nothing à nos yeux, we think. Keep it simple. To our eyes, to our mind. Nothing can justify such a recul. Okay, so I think I said regression here. That tends to be that tends to be the word I use when I want to play safe. That tends to be, regression in English tends to work pretty well when rendering recul from French. They do talk about backsliding quite a bit at the UN. I'm always a bit uncomfortable. I don't know. They say it backsliding, but just to me it sounds slightly odd. So I try and avoid saying it. But we also regret the absence of a reference to a. Now here the French delegation were kind enough to actually give us the answer to this. Wording here, une approche tenant compte du genre, so gender responsive. So there you go. French delegation has put it on a plate for you. If you ever run into that wording again, approche tenant compte du genre is gender responsive. I'm sure they could have come up with a simpler, snappier translation into French, but there you go. As called on by the resolution, FGM must cease, must stop. I said in the original. This is only possible if we actively seek out solutions to structural inequalities qui sévissent. So I said that rage, maybe that are rampant between men and women in communities where this practice still exists. The gender responsive language, consensual and integrated into the last resolution, was also, again, dropped, left out, without good reason. I mean, in English, we would add we'd say for no good reason, which was left out for no good reason by the authors. We would put in the good. And again, here we go with the recul. Now, here I said setbacks. I said, despite these setbacks, I left out constater. Okay, I didn't bother to say. I could have said, despite setbacks noted, but I think it was just as easy to say, just despite these setbacks. Again, I could have said, maybe despite these regressions, despite this backsliding. And because the subject of sexual and genital mutilation is particularly important, France has chosen not to break the consensus on this initiative. So this is, again, something they talk about quite a bit, rompre le consensus, breaking the consensus. I thank you. Okay, so there you have it. That was, I think it was the first time we've really looked at a text on this issue, female genital mutilation, and it comes up quite a bit. It's an important subject, again, to be aware of. And there are some committees where they really get into very serious detail about what it entails, the whole procedure entails. It's not pretty, and certainly when they have those discussions, you really need to know, you need to be on the top of your game with your vocabulary. They discuss that, for example, in the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and then it's not just the political aspects of the problem they discuss. They really go into the bodily details. So just be aware if you're in a meeting. The subject matter might get extremely technical. Okay. Well, if you found that episode helpful, please do give me a like. Smash the thumbs up button. Share it. Keep subscribing if you're watching the show and you're getting benefit from it. Please do subscribe. What else was I going to say? The link, as usual, the link to the transcript and to the original audio will be you can find it in the description box below. And any comments that you have, any new words that you've learned, anything you'd like to correct me on even, is there something? If you've got a better way of saying droit à disposer librement de leur corps, please do stick it in the comments, because I'd love to know what the best solution for that is. Okay, so nothing more to say then, other than that episode 137 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
Good